Oh, sick intro, bro. You stepped your game up since the last time I was on here.
I did.
Hi
Guys,
guys.
welcome back to the IDK podcast. I am your host, Marshall, Mr. Three Sets of 10. I am in the building with Mr. Sunday Night himself, Johnny, aka John Chisari, and I have Drew Schefter in the building from the podcast The Outsiders, who are great constituents of mine, and I do love what they do with fantasy and fantasy football. If you haven't already, please go check out their episodes. They are phenomenal, especially as you go through your fantasy seasons. There's a lot of great detail there, a lot of great insight there, and stuff to keep money in your pocket as you bet, if you choose to bet in your leagues. So on today's podcast, which is a bonus podcast live stream, we are going to talk about the toughness of athletes. This is part one. We are doing a part two tomorrow to further discuss this topic. So I want to start with the premise of, okay, with the evolution of the athlete, the game has gotten faster, the game has gotten stronger, the game has gotten smarter. So in order to compare athletes, I think it does us a disservice to say that we want our old game back. And here's the reason why. That game is primitive. That game is not as not as fluid, and it doesn't have the finesse that today's game does to bring in new viewers. Also, we have to look at people as a commodity. We also have to look at advertisement, and we also have to look at merchandising. People are now using their intellectual property to create more economic posture. So that's my stance on it. I know for a fact that today's athlete, due to and through science, are better, faster, stronger than yesterday's athletes. I'll start with John and get his take on it, and then we'll fly over to Drew, and then we will get Drew's take on it.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head as far as the commodity reason is concerned. The athlete is definitely looked more at in terms of, on a professional level, a dollar amount in a different way, just because to bring it to the NFL and that situation, they started paying QBs a lot of money. And they noticed when Tom Brady went down and Carson Wentz went down and quarterbacks started getting injured a lot, they weren't getting as much viewership. So they tightened the rules up on QB security as far as what you can and can't do to a quarterback. Some people hate it nowadays, and they think the NFL is too soft. You can't touch anybody. But at the same time, they're not the ones watching the views, the television views, like the broadcasters do. And ratings are higher than ever because of the high scoring, because of the defensive changes that they made, as well as the quarterback. But yeah, as far as athletes nowadays, it's just there's the more we live, the more we understand, the more we research things, the more we have knowledge of it. And we do a lot of research as athletes. Not we, but me. I used to be an athlete. So as an athlete, when you are one, you try to do as much research as possible to gain as much of an advantage over your body, especially recovery and growth. So that when it comes time to compete with your body against someone else's body, your body is recovered better, it's grown better, it's stronger, it's faster, it's more stretched out, so on and so forth. So with that has come new technology, new equipment, new understanding of how blood flow works to the muscle, how it works in the repair game, as far as breaking up, or helping the muscle tissue that's broken up, helping that repair itself. And also with evolution in general. I said before the show, You can see simple evolution as far back as of a person, of an athlete, and go as far back as Wilt Chamberlain. Granted, Wilt, I'm a Lakers fan. I mean, Wilt is one of the best of all time. He was a great Laker. He was a great player. But if you put Wilt in today's NBA, would he still be the same Wilt Chamberlain? I don't know, because he played a bunch of smaller white guys. Like, that's how he scored 100 points and got so many rebounds. He was 3 foot taller than everybody. It's just and now the population is kind of catching up some, and now there's like a minimum height requirement almost to be in the NBA. Even point guards now are like 6'4" or something like that. So Ben Simmons is like 6'9" or something playing point guard. So I think athletes are stronger, bigger, stronger, faster today than they've ever been. Partly because of just genetics. And then partly because of just the technological advances and the understudying of medicine and how it works, and as far as the recovery and growth process. So,
all right, Drew, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said already. As far as like that protecting the athletes, protecting the game, protecting the brand. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a business, and if we want to protect the guys, for them to be out there, for them to make that money, and like you said, they're bigger, faster, stronger than ever before, and you can just look. You don't have to do much studying. You can just look at the players today and look at the players then. They look totally different. The speed of the games are totally different. And as far as protecting yourself or protecting the players, as a player, you want to protect yourself as well. Yeah, you sign a contract with that team, but in a sense, you're an independent contractor. Like, you work for them, but you work for yourself. So you got to protect yourself in order to get that next contract or be able to play that next game, to get that endorsement deal or and so on. And like I said, I agree with a lot of what's been said already, but that's kind of my take on it.
So when it comes to a player like Muggsy Bogues, who was 5'4", playing in a league of then Giants,
Nate Robinson.
How would you say? Yeah, or either Nate Robinson. But specifically to the 90s era, because that was pre-internet era. I want to say that your physical toughness had to be there, but mentally it wasn't as taxing to the athlete. Now, not only do they have to worry about, okay, not only do I have to be physical, but now I have to mentally be Twitter, Facebook, IG. You know, the commentary isn't just coming from somebody who is in the industry, it's coming from everybody. So, you have anybody willing to commentate on your performance, and that, from a personal standpoint, can weigh on you and affect your performance by just by natural psychology. So I think the psychological part of any game now is a lot greater for any athlete at any level, because you got to think. Let's even break it down a little bit further and go down to the high school athlete. Their friend circle is probably the most important circle that there is. And if you have a bad game, you can go on a string of bad games, and now you're at a situation where you have little to no self-worth or value.
Yeah. The social media era, or whatever you want to call it, is definitely has definitely added an X factor to athletes once you reach a certain profile. It doesn't have to be amount of money. I mean, a high school kid that's a 5-star recruit could be, get that blue check mark if he's good enough. It's something that I don't think when it first started becoming a thing that people weren't ready for yet. They didn't understand how powerful of a tool, number one, that their words are, but number two, the platforms that push their words, how quickly it can spread like wildfire. And we still have players today that have grown up during that time that still just cannot handle it. Like you see Kevin Durant, for instance, anytime he just melts on Instagram and Twitter. I'm sorry, but KD is just, he reads
He's
everything.
Soft, bro. Like
he just, I'm not saying he's mentally soft because he can, I'm sure he's balled with injuries and stuff, but when he's off it's okay. So to kind of pull it into our podcast realm, outside of fantasy football, we also talk about wrestling. So wrestling, there's a thing called kayfabe, which is the character of the wrestler. And keeping kayfabe means you're back in the old days before it became a TV thing like WWF, it was territories. And people didn't know the difference between real life and kayfabe at that point in time. It was still kayfabe was protected, meaning they were living their life always. If someone was a bad guy at the bar and he was drinking and a good guy came in, they could have been buddies in real life, but because they had a feud that night and they fought in the ring, they didn't want to break kayfabe and go sit next to each other and have a shot. That just ruins the entire thing that they've been trying to do as far as sell tickets. So I think, that's why a lot of wrestlers you see die early and die young, because they don't get to take a break from their business, from their kayfabe. And I swing that back into sports and Kevin Durant and those types of people that go on Twitter and stuff and go on tirades. It's because they're just tired of being on always. Like, being the athlete is no longer being defined by when you step on the field. Like, you're always the athlete now, so like your job is always on. It's always your kayfabe is 24/7 now. That's who you are. You're a personality, and people are always trying to interact with you. And I think some people are built for it. Like, not to be biased, but LeBron James, who hasn't had a very significant, if any, media incident where he's like really broken down on Twitter. And then you got people like AB who can barely put a coherent sentence together because he's been hit in the head so many times, to Kevin Durant just arguing with 12-year-olds for no reason and creating burner accounts. Like, it's a full-time job, dude. When you get that much money, you got to hire a media team or stay off of social media, period, because it'll eat you alive. Some of these comments that these athletes are getting are worse than the defenders that are trying to say stuff to get into their head during the game. So that's my take on
it. Drew, what you got?
Yes, as far as social media goes, like he brought up Durant, him and Perkins, they go at it like nonstop, and it's like you said, some people are just built for it, and some they can't handle it. Growing up, I always heard every action doesn't need a reaction. You kind of just have to, when you're in that spotlight, in that position, you gotta pick and choose when it's right and when it's not. And I think sometimes people get those confused, or they don't care at all, because they are where they are. They know they can go out and perform and they're going to make their money. And if they're really good, most of the time, people are not going to say anything to them. But in Antonio Brown's case, it totally backfired, and you see where he's at now. He's begging for a job pretty much, and can't even get a call.
And then turning them down.
Yeah, and it's just and like you touched on with the high school kids, like I think it might even be worse on them just because they're not even getting started yet, and people like they have a bad game, and it like I've seen it on Facebook in groups, like grown-ups going after these kids, like just dogging them out, trashing them, and like they're not even. It's not like they're out there, getting paid to do this. They're just getting started in what they're doing, and you got all these people in a town, small town, or even big towns, just kind of tearing you down, and it kills you before you ever really get started. And it is, I think it affects them more so, and I think in the younger generation than the ones that are actually in the league now.
No, yeah, definitely. I'm sure it does.
Well, I mean, there's nothing worse than the former star athlete that that went all state, that couldn't have done it any better than anybody else, just talking mad garbage. Like, we all know one. And hopefully we've never been in that position to be that guy, but hearing that guy is quite comical to me, because it's like you had one opportunity and you squandered it back then. So how can you say that? How can you talk about this athlete now who has better qualities than you ever thought about having? Not to mention that let's just say you couldn't even maintain a body that would even represent what you used to play like.
Yeah.
So sure. I just like, and you get a lot of that, especially from your fanfare. And I know that that's part of sports. Everybody's got a story. Everybody, especially being a former athlete. John, you can most definitely attest to this, especially at the collegiate level. It's really a jump to even hit that level, and the game changes there, by leaps and bounds. So for anybody to even make it to the collegiate level, D1, D2, D3, well D3, D2, and especially D1, your body's been tore up, at least for what, 10 years at least, because you played peewee ball, you played middle school ball, you played high school, and you most definitely played high school ball. So you got to think you've got 10,000 hours in easily by the time you're 16, as far as a specificity. So I just and that's just today's athlete. Way back when, like, you could do multi sports, and you didn't have to focus. Like, it was like, okay, I done this, and this, and then I could really hone in around late high school, and then if I did get that extended opportunity to go play collegiate ball, then that's when I really put my hours in. But I literally see kids, and I've had the opportunity to train some younger kids to be like, this is the only thing I want to do, and mom and dad pay big money to have little Johnny or little Jane, go in, and this is all that we do, and this is what you do, and you go get your hour in. And the body just takes torment. Or, you know how to recover if you have the right type of coach, and you get into those situations where you are paid that significant amount because you and your team, as John stated earlier, like, y'all put in the work. But I think with the way that sports are now, if you don't have a team of people around you to help you specify, and for everybody to see that common goal, I don't think it's fair for anybody to speak on somebody who does. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with all you said, especially that the athlete nowadays needs to essentially have a walking team around them. You know, one to monitor the social media, one to monitor the personal life, one to make sure the healing and the resting is occurring, one to make sure the money's going in and out the right way. And even then, you can't trust those people because no one really has your best interest at heart. It's about your money and how much you're paying them. If you want to see how much someone cares about you, quit paying them, and then see how long they stay around. You know, so it's definitely important now as a professional athlete to have that right community surrounding you to try to keep you on the straight and narrow, if there is one, or whatever you consider that to be. So.
Not only that, but you also have the homies hitting you up, especially as you start to gain fame and access to different networks. You know, you got, okay, well, hey, hook me up with this opportunity. Hey, let me get on with you on this opportunity. And just managing people alone is hard. Like, ask any manager at any job. I don't care if it's 2 people that you got to manage or 200 people. You're like, dude, like, you have to account for somebody else's reactions, emotions, and actions, period. Like, on a day-to-day basis, I have a hard time keeping up with me, most of us, me and somebody else. So, you know, John, you can attest to this. Imagine, like, you come home and your wife and your daughter are like at odds because, like, your daughter won't go to bed and your wife's like, bro, I'm tired as fuck, and I'm like, bro, and I've had a hard day at work, and you had a hard day at work, and you're like, man, I got to deal with all this right now.
That reminds me, if you guys never seen this movie, to watch this movie, but it reminds me of one of the opening scenes in the movie, The Negotiator, with Denzel, or not Denzel Washington, Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey plays a hostage negotiator, and he literally comes home from after a hostage negotiation situation to see his daughter and his wife in argument, and the wife has locked herself in the bathroom because the daughter called her fat. So he's sitting there trying to negotiate his wife out of the bathroom while his daughter's in the background, not making it any easier for him. Anyway, it's a really good movie. It's not supposed to be a comedy, but that first scene is hilarious, and you just reminded me of it. But yeah, it's kind of how it is.
But I mean, and I just toughness of an athlete now. I think I don't think I know it's misjudged. It has to be. Like, you have particular characters who you have particular people who have character that can't cut it, and they don't make the cut now. Period. Like, it's now eat or die in a league where you can't be mediocre. Like, you can't be all right and still make the cut, because that learning curve goes up every season. Literally every season. Every advancement that can be had will be had. So, you know, I just don't believe that anybody from 1970, you know, can play with anybody in a league from 2020. Like, it just doesn't compute. Now, what I will say is, when it comes to mental toughness, there might be some leverage there, because, you know, just from certain backgrounds, but the leagues have changed at this point. You take the NFL, for instance. You have a league now that is primarily African American versus a league back in the 60s and 70s that was still predominantly white. if I'm not mistaken. So now you have a lot of trauma being, kind of the trauma being the elephant in the room, because you've got all these different people coming from a similar background to say, oh, okay, this is what it is, and we've all heard it, and we've all done it. Like, you get on a football field and you're like, okay, this particular situation has propelled me, so this pisses me off. So I'm going to take out all my energy and take it out on this specific play or this specific person, or whatever. And that type of aggression isn't playing smart now. So now again, you're having to kind of weigh back and forth.
Oh, it looked like you froze up there for a second.
I thought you did too.
I just
but yeah, you hit the nail on the head as far as the difference of mindset. I would say probably if you had to poll it, I don't know how you would poll it, but if you could, you had to have a little bit more mental toughness back then to play, because back when I played football, you're either hurt or you're injured. There was no blurred line between it. It was either can you play or can you not play? Like, can you stand or like, if you can't stand, then okay, you can come off the field. But if you can walk on it, you can run on it. Like if the ball touches your hands, you should be able to catch it. So I mean, but now with all the advances in technology as far as sports medicine and things like that, it's not that we don't want to be mentally tough. It's just we want to be more safe for the future. Earl Thomas is in a wheelchair now, because he's so beat up. His body's so broken. It's a testament to his will. It's a testament to how mentally tough he was, but where did it get him? Like he's in his 60s or 70s, something like 60s, something like that. And right. He legitimately needs a wheelchair or some type of walking device if he tries to stand up. So yeah, I would say there had to be more mental toughness back then. It just, you couldn't play without it because there was no other thing to compensate for that ability to play. Now, we got braces and sleeves and straps and all types of things. Whereas back then they had to just do it, just rely on grit to go out there, If Jim Brown's pants ripped when he was running in the first quarter, they didn't have a team seamstress or a team the guy that hands out jerseys, like an equipment manager to that extent back then. He just had to play with ripped pants the rest of the game. So I mean, it was a different mindset, I believe, because it had to be, not because we've changed. It's just the situation around us has changed, and we've sort of adapted to it.
Drew, what you got?
Yeah, as far as like you were talking about a little bit earlier, you were talking about how the parents paying all the trainers and to go to these just different workouts and all this different stuff. Like when I was growing up and when we were growing up playing, like I don't remember that being like a priority. Like this shows how it's evolved. Like now if you play baseball, you're probably playing baseball year round. Or now if you're playing basketball or football, like there's basketball, AAU, it's year round. Like there's summer leagues, there's they go all these camps and training, and like there's 5 and 6, 7-year-old kids traveling all over the United States year round playing.
You don't even need college ball. Like the youngest ball brother now. Like he went into China and played. He just completely skipped college and just been playing and making money there forever. Sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Oh, you're fine. And now I think there was a guy that instead of going to college, he went straight to I think it was the Drew League or the D League to play basketball for a year, and then so he could move up to the NBA instead of going to college, just because he felt that he was good enough to be in the league and getting paid. So he skipped college, and that's how he did that. But yeah, as far as the mental aspect of it, like you said, you had to be a certain type of mental tough back then just because of how it was, and I think it has evolved to where it's even more so now that you have to be a mental tough with, like we talked about, the social media, going year round, playing, having to travel everywhere and play and go to this workout and do this training at this time. And you got to, it's so much more than what I remember when we were growing up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that too, the year round stuff. I didn't play football. I want
to pose this question to the both of you. What is soft behavior? Like, I know that we've touched on for about 30 minutes what we see the differences are, but what counts as like, okay, you're just being soft. And are we giving athletes a pass because they're just being soft?
I mean, in what sport? I mean, because in basketball, it's a good thing if you take a flop, So I guess it just depends on the context of the situation and who the person. Do what?
How do you figure that taking a flop is positive?
Because it gets the other team or it gets you in the bonus quicker. That way you get your 1-and-1s. It could stop the other team from getting 2 points if it's an offensive foul. I mean, there's positives to flopping. If it's the NFL, we've seen here week 1, someone took a flop. Jalen Ramsey took a flop and got the penalty called his way. I mean, it's not the most ethical way, but it gets results sometimes. That to me is not soft. That is intelligence. That is learning how to manipulate the game based on the rules. That's what we praise Bill Belichick for. That's why we consider him one of the greatest football coaches of all time, the way he manipulates the rules and the system that's there. And they have to constantly change the rules to keep up with his interpretation. So I don't know. Softness would be, I don't know. I haven't really seen in my memory like a professional athlete that's had a moment of softness. Maybe a moment of drama, like LeBron needing to be carried off after having cramps. I've had leg cramps before. Like I've had them cramp to the point where my legs were seizing up. I know how much it hurts and how much you really can't walk on it. But I mean, you don't need your team to carry you out like you just sacrificed yourself to the gods or some shit like that. Like that's a little soft. That's a little soft.
Okay, so you admit it. So you admit it. He's soft. You admit that the GOAT is soft.
Yes.
I said he's had soft moments. He's also had intelligent moments. I mean,
if you got soft moments, then you soft, bro.
hey, whether you love him or you hate him, soft.
No. Keep the same energy. Don't switch up now. We're not even talking about commerce. We're talking about total grit and willfulness and willpower. Kobe played with an Achilles that was shredded. It walked off the court, came back out, shot free throws, and then walked back off. Your man's got a cramp, and he's like, "I'm about to die." Here's the thing. I love you.
He wanted to get the gurney.
But you have, but you know that that's the scariest thing in the world versus having a leg cramp. Which one is worse?
I mean, definitely the Achilles tear. That's usually that's like today what the ACL tear was for the running back. You know, once that's gone, your career's over with. So the fact that Kobe walked out there to finish the free throws, number one, it just shows how mentally tough of a person he was and how he wasn't going to let anything beat him. Not even an Achilles tear. He was going to walk out there by himself. Also, I know if it was me and it was that type of injury, I want to take as many seconds left on that court as I could possibly afford myself. So if that means missing 2 free throws just so I get an additional 20 seconds on a basketball court in front of thousands of people, yeah, I'm going to try to shoot those free throws, you know, before I say goodbye to the thing that I love a lot. So,
that was late in his career. So, I mean, for him to come back and still play at a high level, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, for sure. LeBron, I mean, definitely it's half publicity. I mean, for sure. Just because I like him and I think he's the greatest player doesn't mean he doesn't have any faults. Like being carried off with your cramps and stuff, like that's definitely for show for the cameras. But the man also does spend at least $1 million, if not more, on his body a year through training and recovery and all this stuff we've been talking about this whole podcast to extend his longevity. And his only significant injury came last year, knock on wood, with his hamstring or groin or whatever it was. And that's being at 34. Now he's 35 in his 17th season. And he's been healthy all year. They're still looking good. He's still looking good. He's changed his role a little bit to a little backseat role. And he's handling it perfectly because it's taking even more pressure off of him. So it's just, again, it's the context. It's the person. It's the situation. Everyone's different in their mind and how their body's built. But mental toughness is, you know, it like Drew said, it probably was needed a little bit more back then. And nowadays it's more manufactured depending on the person, I think, because there's ways around not feeling something, you know, pain, like cortisone shots and things like that, you know. So you don't always have to have the strongest mind. You just have to have the strongest body, if that makes sense, the most athletic body or something like that, unless you got killer technique or something like that. But yeah,
Drew, go ahead and weigh in for me, fam.
Softness. I mean, I think softness would be like if you have like a broke finger or even a sprained ankle or something like that, and the game's on the line, and you go ahead and set out. Like if it's an important game, like a playoff game or something like that. If it was me, like if I broke a finger or sprained ankle, or like do whatever we got to do to get me back out there.
It'd be like Ronnie Lott.
Yeah, Ronnie Lott. He literally cut his finger off on the football field, and
on the sideline.
Yeah, and still try to play. So I can give you an example of what Terrell Owens called soft, and that was Donovan McNabb in the huddle puking on the last drive of the game. He caught a lot of flack over that one.
Yeah, I remember the game. Yeah, Brad had a tummy ache, and he was like, "Oh man, I can't do this."
Yeah, a tummy ache. That isn't a perfect example of soft. When Jordan played with the flu, like you said, Kobe walked out on the court with an Achilles injury. Emmitt Smith played with a separated shoulder against the Giants in the playoffs. I mean,
DeMarco Murray playing with a broken hand.
Yeah, he played with, yeah. I mean, I think it's mental toughness, but I think it's like that desire and will to be great, and I think that's what separates the great players from the good players.
Yeah.
The greatness and the legends, so to speak, separates them from the ones that were good. They just never showed up, you know.
Yeah, I agree. It's never it's never in our DNA of humans to want pain. I mean, there's those people that claim they like pain and blah blah blah, but not in general, human nature, we don't like pain. We don't like to inflict pain on ourselves. Our body pulls our if you hold your hand over a fire, your hand's going to get pulled off. Your brain takes it away from it. We don't encourage to hurt ourselves and stuff like that. So in order to go through, to push through, to know that what you're going to do, like to catch a pass over the middle, you're going to get hit when you catch that pass, but you put yourself through that pain anyway. It takes a special type of individual to do those sports. Cheerleaders with all the flips and the bumps and bruises. And I watched a documentary on cheerleading, and I didn't realize. I play football, so like I see cheerleaders all the time, but I never saw their competitions and how dangerous and stuff that they were. And I watched a documentary on it, and they're strapped up with some got broken wrists and broken toes and stuff, and they just tape it up and go out there like nothing happened with a smile on their face. And to be an athlete of any sport, you have to be a different creature. You have to be a different breed. Not only do you have to be humble enough to allow someone to correct you, sometimes in bad ways, like yelling in your face and stuff, but you got to navigate the waters of constantly judged by people that are in your position and that aren't in your position. You have to learn how to navigate the waters about what you say and how you are perceived by the public. And then also you got to try to find that balance if you're a higher level athlete, as far as school and sports, if you're high school, college, or a family and sports and training, if you're a professional athlete. All in all, rolled into one, an athlete is a special person, and it's a gift. It really is a gift to be an athletic person. So if you do play sports and you are one of those lucky few that do have successful talents in it, use your platform for good and don't let it go to waste, because there's many people that aren't given what you have been given, and aren't going to have the microphones that you're going to have in your face. So think about it much more than what it's going to do for you, and think about it as what you're going to do for it. Because I believe no matter what we do, our place here is to make sure that we found the world better than what we got it. So,
another thought that just came to me as far as mental toughness, as I was listening to you talk, like, I don't know that you can necessarily I don't know that you can necessarily teach mental toughness, but I was sitting there thinking, the old saying, or a thing that I heard a lot growing up, I don't know if it's an old saying, but you're a product of your environment. If you grew up in a tough, tough environment, I think that kind of prepares you, to be, mentally tough. I don't know, like I said, I don't know that you can teach it, but
get those calluses.
You're used to that. You're seasoned that by the time you get to that point. If you grew up in a place where everybody's it's just kind of a sensitive environment, not necessarily like a I don't know how to really explain that part of it, but
I think jump, that scene where they fouled him and stuff on purpose and shit.
Yeah, like I said, I think you're just a product of your environment, and that has a lot. I think it has a lot to do with how mentally tough you are. Like, if you went through some things and were seasoned in that, and it kind of toughens you up, to get to that point, you can just go through whatever and it doesn't phase you. But if you were sheltered maybe your whole life, you haven't experienced anything, and when something major pops up, you don't know how to handle that. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's why we were so surprised, and we still are surprised with Zion, because he was that one that was like protected in the bubble the whole time, and the only bad thing that we saw him had to deal with is when a shoe blew out in that game, and we're like, oh no, how is he going to handle it? And he's turned out a good person, a decent human being. We saw, Lonzo and all that, and we thought it was going to be a wreck, and it was in a disaster and all that. It turns out he just needed to get away from LA and get away from his dad, and he's an okay person. So yeah, I feel you on that one for sure.
So on that note, as we wrap up part 1 of this, I want to thank you guys for crossing over and doing this podcast with me. Granted, I wish we had more time to hit more talking points. This is one of those subjects that we can go around and round and round about. We can pick apart certain sports, and we can pick apart certain people all day long. But I want to give you guys a few minutes to express what you guys got going on with Outsiders Podcast and Fantasy, and really just tell everybody what you got going on.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So first of all, Drew and I, we co-host along with our buddy Chad, the Outsiders Podcast, or the Outsiders Fantasy Podcast. Mostly what we deal with around this time of the year, at least, is fantasy football. Also regular football, but there's a difference in reality and fantasy. And what we do is we try to provide the most up-to-date information, as well as analysis and predictions and projections of player points in either standard or PPR leagues. If our growing audience wants us to get into daily fantasy, we can definitely do that as well. But usually it's revolved around fantasy football projections and advice and reviews. After the week is over, we always give a review over the past week and player projections and things like that. And then once a week for fun, we like pro wrestling at the Outsiders Podcast, or Outsiders Fantasy Podcast. That's why our names are the Outsiders. It's kind of a homage to a famous wrestling group. So once a week, we like to, let the hair down, so to say, and have fun and just talk about what happened in pro wrestling that week, and just kind of be ourselves and let loose and have fun. And our content's going to grow more as our page does. After football season, we'll have to evolve some and figure out where we're going to go from there, but that's the whole fun of it. But as of right now, we're focused on fantasy football, and then once a week with our wrestling program. So we're on YouTube and Facebook, Outsiders Fantasy Podcast. Give us a like, give us a shout, subscribe, whatever. Let us know what you want from us, and we'll give it to you for sure.
Drew, do you have anything? We can't hear Drew at all. Drew is talking his ass off. We can't hear nothing.
Yeah, it's lagging on his end.
Yeah, he's lagging super bad.
I think what he's trying to say is that that LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. I think that's what you said.
That's not what he said. Quit playing,
no,
bro.
I can relive.
Don't say it. Why do you wait? Why do you wait till the end to get this crap started? We had a whole show. We had this guy, and now we got this guy in like 15 minutes. Don't do that.
You should have known. You should have known I had to plug that at some point. Oh man.
So, as John stated, please go check out the Outsiders podcast. I know a lot of you gentlemen who are within our group chat. You guys do fantasy. Y'all are doing big things over there. Like I said, if you're needing some assistance in lineups and who to play, that's John and Drew definitely know what they're talking about and can definitely put you on the right track. I also want to shout out this week Certified Ink done these shirts right here. This shirt rather.
First, appreciate you having us on. It was good.
The lags catching.
Always love to have those type of discussions.
Man, it was lagging like a son of a.
Man, yeah. So yeah, shouts out to Mike Cates, who is running Certified Ink down here in Gallatin on South Water. Go check him out if you need any type of shirts. John, when are we gonna see some merch from you all?
Hopefully sometime in the next couple of months. We're getting some things worked out. But yeah, here in the next few months, we're definitely, we got some designs going, ready to go. Now we're just trying to work out exactly the right time to put that out. We're waiting to around 500 likes on our Facebook page. And then we're going to start handing out some free shirts if we can get that. So if they, as your sign says at the bottom, if they could like, comment, and subscribe to our pages as well. Once we get the 500, we'll start rolling that merch out, and we'll start giving it out for free for the first part of it. So for sure.
Oh, no question. So as I end this podcast, like I do every week, if you don't know by now, then I don't know what to tell you. This has been the I Don't Know podcast, and we're out.